Go.
There we go. Okay, welcome everybody to the second edition of Second Opinion Live podcast. We did this for the first time in December, right before the holiday break, and we are back with a fresh batch of decks, hopefully some repeat ones from people who didn't get their decks reviewed last time as well, because there were some really interesting companies in there I'd love to take a look at. I'm Kara. I'm from Hustle Fund. We invest in pre-seed and seed stage startups. We believe that founders look like anyone and come from anywhere. And we have close to 600 companies in our portfolio right now globally. So very proud of the work that we do and excited to meet lots of people that are here. We've got a great crowd coming in. Wow. And also joined today by the Deck Doctors team. So we've got Alex and Mark, and they do some really incredible work working with startups to develop their decks and help startups raise more money more successfully by really helping startups kind of dial in what the story is, what's compelling to investors, and what's going to make an investor go from not interested to booking a meeting. They've worked with hundreds of startups, including a lot of companies that are in the Hustle Fund portfolio. So we trust them and love working with them. And so happy to be hosting this with them today.
We're pumped to be here.
Thank you. I'm going to go through the process for today, and then I will hand the mic over to Mark to do a little intro as well, and then we'll get started. So welcome everybody. If you would like to have your deck reviewed today, please put the link to your deck in the chat. I see a lot of you are already done that. Thank you so much. Here's the caveat, okay? And if you haven't been paying attention, this is a really good time to start. The link needs to be something that we can click on and see in one click. If it requires us to download it, we will not look at it. If it requires us to put in our email, we will not look at it. If it requires us to put in our social security number or offer naming rights to our first child, we're not going to look at your deck. So please make sure that we have access to it, that it is easy for us to click on and see it. Otherwise, we are not going to look at it. Here's the other thing. We have an hour. We do not have 2 hours. We do not have 10 hours. We have 1 hour. And we're going to try to get through as many decks as possible. However, we are limited time. So we're going to focus on the first 20 links that are viable in the chat. If we have more time, we will go through decks, but we're going to start with the first 20. Okay. Feel free to put your questions or your angry emojis or your happy emojis in the chat anytime. And now I'm going to pass it off to Mark. Hi, Mark.
Thank you, Kara. That was a very aggressive opening from you. I've never seen that style before in our many times collaborating, but it was cool. All right, so we're getting everything together in the back end. We're going to start with Marble, but really quick, I just wanted to give an intro to Shifra on our team. So, I think most people know Alex and I, but we have a small but mighty team that supports us as well. And we're lucky to be joined today by the smallest and mightiest member of our team, who is Shifra Khan. So Shifra is the strongest deck doctor adjusted by body weight. We determined that through some pseudoscience. She's also the smartest deck doctor. That's not been confirmed scientifically, but that's because we don't want to. We don't want to know what happens in that IQ test battle. Alex and I will feel quite bad. Shifra basically helps on all projects. She's both a project manager and a consultant, extremely sharp with a great design eye. She's going to jump in for maybe a couple decks today and provide some thoughts. And she's also from Toronto. She's a proud Canadian, and she often talks about that. So without further ado, if everyone wants to say hi to Shifra in the chat, Shif, if you want to say hello, please do, and then we'll dive right in.
Yeah, super pumped. Great to meet everybody.
Alex.
We take it away. Are we jumping into some decks?
Let's fire.
All right.
The clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking. Let's do it. So we have the first deck of the day from a company called Marble, and I think we're off to a hot start. I took a quick scan through. We're going to try to run through these quickly and then try to provide some high level recommendations. I think as everyone has noted, this is what we do, is what we've done for the last 2 years. We've worked on 300 plus decks. We reviewed many, many, many decks. So this is like the one very specific, I guess, zone of expertise that we have. So hopefully we can, provide some value running through these decks. So right off the bat, Marble is personalized learning at scale. They address education not changing for a very long time, and that there is an opportunity for personalized tutors with AI. There's kind of this like long upfront that's just kind of word based, and then we get into some of the crux of the solution, which is, I guess, helping students think through the problem and actually generating custom material for them to engage with, as opposed to, I guess, other approaches. They have a lot of student love, 2,000 users, 30K monthly messages sent to the AI tutor. So it's, in market being used. There, I guess, is a revenue model here and a kind of, I guess, go-to-market strategy focusing on something small, moving to SAT and math tutoring services, and then targeting K-12 and beyond. And then towards the back half here, it looks like we talk a lot about why the current AI tools are missing the mark and where we're zigging, where they're zagging. And then we have kind of this like ending vision. So right off the bat, there's so many good ingredients here. I love the concept. I think when I go through this deck, I think enough investors have some familiarity with the concept that AI can penetrate um, the personalization of tutoring. And so now the burden, instead of kind of explaining why a personalized tutor would be necessary, the burden becomes how do we differentiate if it is kind of clear that AI will, kind of support the tutoring space or the personalization of tutoring. And I think where we differentiate needs to not be towards the end of the deck, but more so towards the beginning of the deck. If we kind of highlight, all right, everybody knows with, all the tools at our disposal, tutoring is something that will be brought to scale or brought to the masses thanks to AI. There are some current approaches here, but they're missing for XYZ reason. And we're not missing for that reason. And, looking to kind of build some white space in this general market. I think that would flow a little bit, more cleanly than where I'm currently looking at. I think the, solution section does show how you guys are unique. But really looking to hone in on the differentiation from the jump, leading to this awesome credibility that you've built with people actually using the product, great testimonials, thousands of users. Those are kind of the two things that I'd want to know. And if those are the two things that I'd want to know, I'd want to know them sooner rather than later, instead of kind of having to wind through this longer upfront. So that would be my recommendation. I think there's so many good pieces here. You have all the ingredients of a great pitch and what looks to be an early great company. But just kind of reorienting the story to what would be the most important thing for an investor to know would likely be optimal when you're pitching investors. So any thoughts from the team?
Yeah, I'll chime in really quickly, which is that one thing I would love to see from the investor side is a stronger brand presence. So I get it. You're solving big problems. You are probably wearing 1 million hats, and obviously you're launching things, you're shipping things, you're iterating. I love that you have some market pull. There are a lot of companies that are attacking this space. So I think really bringing your brand in, your story, why are you the right team to solve this problem, would be quite powerful and differentiate you from the other companies that are in the similar problem space.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you, Marble. Let's move to the next deck. Mark, you ready?
Yep. So we have Fan Squad. Fan Squad is about turning solo spectators into a global squad. Sports fans are disjointed. They watch sports alone. It sucks. But there's a huge market for sports fans, and they should probably all be watching together. So Fan Squad seeks to solve social isolation for sports fans. High level, I think the deck does a really great job visually. I just wanted to call that out. I think it feels it feels like it feels like a big app already. I think the UX looks good. The color choice is great. Like I just think the brand kit is strong. Also, Remington, I'm curious if you are a phenomenal athlete or are posing in these different photos. But one way or another, I was very intrigued by the slide. And I think this is something people don't do enough. They don't put themselves in the team slide. People are investing in a founder often at the earliest stages. And this definitely makes me want to get to know you better. So some really good things there. I think like the biggest hurdle of this deck is just convincing an investor that a super app is viable in sports. And I think that's actually a really big hurdle to get over. You have kind of these two pieces of what I'd call secondary evidence, where you have Andrew Chen mentioning vertical apps proliferating, and then you also have this quote from Michael Siebel. And this is okay, but I'd say as far as the evidence spectrum goes, this is on the weaker end. So what I would love is to see, kind of some stronger signals that you're going to make the dominant super app in sports. I think one place that this could happen is up here. We talk about the fragmented fan experience, kind of in this long form way. But if maybe we could just pull out a few icons or kind of say that there's these 5 missing pieces in the fan experience, almost like a broken user journey. Then when you introduce this app, instead of just showing it off and having all these features, and I'm not quite sure why you chose wagers and shopping or events, you actually are showing how you're solving that broken journey directly. So that's what we call like a build sequence. And I think there's a really great opportunity to have this be really messed up and ugly and just look like a bad time. And then you bring in something that is just solving all those pain points. I think that would help make the super app pitch more compelling. And then I think on the other piece, when we have a super app, there's a lot of players involved. You'd have a food partner, maybe it's Uber Eats. You'd probably be connecting with some sort of betting platform to fulfill that portion of the app. So I think if someone does buy in the vision, they're going to maybe want to understand the partner dynamics. Why would you choose one partner or another? Are you making money for Uber Eats, plugging them in through this? Kind of how are you imagining that ecosystem works? So I was kind of expecting to see an ecosystem roadmap, which I didn't get. And I think that would just make it clear to someone that you're serious about this and are kind of going all the way in your considerations. Besides that, really good job. And thanks for sending. Any thoughts, Kara?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. This was a really fun deck to look at. I am a little bit unclear as to what the user experience is right now, like how much of this has been built. And what I saw that there were 50 users already from a product hunt launch, 100 users on the wait list. Traction of any kind at this stage is great. Anything over 0, right? So that's cool. What are those users saying? Like, how are they engaging with the app? And then also, I think some investors are going to have some questions around the betting side. So gambling in general is often a taboo industry for investors because the regulation can be, kind of hit and miss. Yeah. And so I think just understanding a little bit more like what's been built, how are users interacting with it, and what's the business model? Like, do people pay to participate? What are the numbers? Like, how are you gonna get to 100 million in revenue, or even just $1 million in revenue? I think I had a lot of questions around those pieces.
Great. Theramotive.
Let's do it. All right. Let me skip to the beginning of the deck here. So we have Theramotive. All right, Theramotive, future of physical therapy. Theramotive looks to solve this very large problem in physical therapy being kind of a burden for most people that go to physical therapy by offering, and it's obviously a large market and an amazing team, by offering a mobile, on-the-go, come-to-you Uber of physical therapy with trucks outfitted for a variety of different physical therapy needs, combining that with AI, virtual reality, and wearables to offer, a seamless in-person and virtual experience as it relates to physical therapy. It's a very unique model. There's, some justification on why mobile. why wearables, and then this awesome video GIF section of customer demos of people actually in the truck doing their therapy, which I think is it just kind of makes it feel real. And then they're very comprehensive with the rest of the deck, showing how they make money, how it's different, and a few other things. So my immediate thought is this is a really outside the box solution to a problem that I think most people can get behind, um, which is obviously a really good place to be. As I skimmed through it the first time I was kind of reviewing it, I think that the business model and the connection of physical in person um, to virtual physical therapy felt a little bit disjointed, and I think that there's a little bit more that can be done, especially when you have a solution that does feel a little bit outside the box, not exactly what I was thinking when we were talking about this problem. It would be, I think, most effective to, as quickly as you can, bring this video of people actually in the truck getting their physical therapy to show that this is what the solution actually is, and people are engaging with it in a way that looks like it's working. And I think, you know, instead of the few slides that came before making me think, okay, maybe mobile truck physical therapy could be a solution to this big problem. Um, I get that kind of right away, and thus you have the opportunity to basically say, there's this big problem. We're solving it in this way. These are real customers that are using it, and here's what they're saying. And I'm not sure if we get to the here's what they're saying part yet, which I think would just, number one, make the solution a lot clearer from the jump, versus kind of this like multi-pronged approach that I kind of have to weave through. And then two, just establish immediate credibility that this is not some pie in the sky vision for a network of mobile truck physical therapists, but we're actually doing it and people love it. So that's kind of, I think, the main recommendation. And then I do think that there's an opportunity to do a little bit of a kind of cleaner job talking about how the combination of the physical therapy clinics and the AI app and kind of all the mobile stuff that you want to do weave together to, solve this problem really holistically for people. Um, if we can get them in person, then we can generate, continued revenue and continued engagement and continued revenue by keeping them engaged through the app and through the online services, which then hopefully flywheels to them coming back to the physical therapy clinics when they're in the neighborhood. I do think there's a lot of logistical things to kind of explain around scale that are question marks. But ultimately, I think we, should just look to streamline this deck a little bit and then show off the fact that, it's in market, people are loving it as soon as possible. So those are my thoughts. Curious if
Sweet.
anyone else has any thoughts.
It's great.
All right,
All
cool.
right. Okay. Frost Forge. So this is a crazy one. Really, really fun one to go through. Frost Forge is grid-free refrigeration, simply cool. The thing to know is that they are creating ice from the sun. That is being done with a pretty unique process where the sun heats up, gas is released and then cooled. Um, Chemical reactions occur and ice is created, which allows for a continuous creation of ice. I think ice can solve, it seems like ice can solve a lot of the problems with cold storage instead of having to use diesel or electricity or these other systems. I think if we can create ice more effectively and keep that ice cold, we can keep food colder in a more environmentally sustainable and probably cost beneficial way. So that's the pitch at a high level. I think I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different direction than usual and just talk about design. Because while I do have a few very small reordering tweaks, like I think that this slide came late. It made it really clear to me what's going on in cooling, and I didn't get that until pretty late in the deck. So this is one that I maybe bring up earlier. But besides kind of some ordering issues, I think the main thing that would just make this deck an A or an A plus would be changing the design. So first I just want to start with language. I think simply cool. I liked it at first, and then as things went on, and I realized that there is a lot of IP and proprietary information on the line, I think it felt a little too junior. We see something kind of happen here too, where it's ice from the sun, and there's maybe a couple other places here where I think it just feels a little casual in the way you're talking about all of this. So yes, part of that was language, but I think most importantly, it's kind of just coming from the design. So what I would recommend is, instead of maybe having pictures of the sun or pictures of ice cubes, how do we make this feel like a really technical deck? So to do that, I would want to have there be honestly less color, a lot more white space on the slides. I probably would recommend no backgrounds of any sort. Maybe a few images of the product or a few images of the environments that the product's working in. But I definitely would kind of move away from some of this full bleed stuff. And I think in general, if you were to do that and just introduce kind of like a more architectural feel to the design system, it's going to feel like a serious product. And I think that's the thing that it took me a while to understand this pitch. You're kind of going for a pretty paradigmatic innovation that could potentially be really important for the environment and for the way we and for food supply chains. So I want the deck to tell me that visually. I want to know off the bat that this is really serious stuff happening. That deserves lots of R&D and the associated capital to accomplish it. So yeah, we could go, email me. I can send you some more tips on the narrative. But I think for now, I just want to talk about design, as this is a great example where the design could be better matched to the content.
I know we're keeping things tight, so I'm excited to keep moving. I will say two very quick things is that your team is clearly experts in this field. I would have that slide way earlier in the deck. And also I saw that you have some LOIs already. I would also move that way up. This is as Mark said, this is very technical. This went way over my head and it's going to go over most VC's head because they are not experts in almost anything, right? They're like, I have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of things. And so hitting them with the two reasons why they should pay attention and take a meeting with you is that you're the right team for this and you're already have some partnerships in place.
Well said.
Okay, that was a fun one. Yeah. Alex, you ready for the next?
All right, let's do it. We have Hello CX. Hello.cx, and I think the company is called CX. CX is looking to create a social media app that gets people engaged online, but mostly bring them offline for real relationship building, and I guess mostly kind of the sharing of unique ideas, educating themselves. I love this kind of intellectually promiscuous persona that they look to target, and looks like they've built this kind of robust app that combines social media with real in-person content and engagement. And they have this virtuous cycle, which I think is a really key slide as they continue to do more events. They drive more people, through the app to their in-person events. And then boom, on slide 9, we talk about that they've engaged with 35,000 people, including 1,000 paying members and driving 2.5 mil in total revenue. And then there's a lot of kind of unique slides. It does feel a little lofty with some of the language and a lot of just kind of text overwhelming me in some of these slides. But I think they're onto something really special. And I didn't know that until I got to slide 9. And so my one kind of key recommendation for them is, especially with the social media app, investors are looking for, the demand signals and less, especially at the early stages, less of, kind of an aspirational solution to a problem. And so this simple fix here in my mind for this deck is, I keep a lot of the content in place. The way that you talk about the solution does totally work, but I turn this from an aspirational story where we're, putting this big problem out there. We're, showing how we can solve this problem and then getting into some of the metrics at the end. So from an aspirational story to a winning story, which very clearly would right off the bat say, we have this really unique approach to a social media app that gets people talking in person and we've already driven 2.5 million in revenue through this app because we have unique ability to monetize as opposed to other social media apps which don't have, you know, the in-person element that they can monetize. And so very quickly then you get into the explanation of how this works and why it works. But you're just flipping the narrative from this is what we're trying to do to this is working, it's taking off. This is why it's taking off. You know, join us as we scale it to other cities. So otherwise, I think the deck is, you know, relatively well designed. Maybe less copy would be useful in some areas. Maybe this deck could be a little shorter, but definitely lean with your strong suit and tell a winning story because it seems like you guys are winning. So, it's my thoughts.
Nice.
Thank you. One teeny tiny
Oh.
thing from me, sorry, really small, is I would remove how much you're raising. Leave that as a conversation to have with each investor as those conversations progress. Okay, Mark,
Totally.
shall we?
That is a great point. Okay, so Riff Raff. This is fun because it's actually it's kind of related to Fan Squad in that I think it's at the intersection of kind of an interest group and also solving for loneliness. So Riff Raff is music practice powered by fandom. Music practice improves mental wellness, but 90% of hobby musicians abandon their practice. For me, this is clearly a problem. So yeah, I think, you know, similarly to Fan Squad, there is a little bit of an everything app here. I think this is almost emerging as a trend where clearly there is a belief that there will be a next generation of companies that are kind of building goals. I think, you know, the thing that I want to talk about is one, this is pretty impressive and was more impressive than I was expecting. So I just want to take a second to talk about hooks. I think every pitch needs to open with a hook. Kara made a great point about bringing the team up and traction up as a hook in another deck. But there's a lot of other things you can use to hook someone in. So yes, traction's really good. You could also use a villain. So if like, let's say there's really something wrong in music apps, like for some reason they're all siloed or they break or there's some issue, you could just start off the bat and be like, music apps suck. Or something like that. So I want people to realize, like, you know, it doesn't just have to be traction or team to open. You want a strong piece of evidence and also something that's going to engage people. I think this is strong though, and our first choice is almost always traction. If we can show up into the right chart, that is every VC's favorite thing to see. I think the main thing I wanted to talk about here is solving what I'd call the cold start problem. So yes, we do have maybe a big opportunity with Strava, awesome company, Duolingo, awesome company. But we also know that social apps probably fail at a faster rate than any app. Like I think of startups I've met, social media apps have like one of the lowest success rates. And in general, I think for every social app that's created, the ones that are successful or have, you know, endure beyond even a couple years or a couple months is really low. So I want this to include some stuff around stickiness. You know, why do we think this is something people would keep using? And I also want to include some information around, you know, what is the piece that people want to use first? Because yes, in a future state where everyone's on it, it would be great to have everything you need possible. But I'm curious if there's like a tip of the spear dynamic here. You know, maybe we can make a point that tabs or sheet music are really antiquated, and that feature is what people are going to use first to come onto the app and then get these other things. So I'm curious just how the features that you're building in are maybe being sequenced or used for more than just benefits, but are also being used as part of user acquisition. Because I do think that is the biggest problem. You know, people don't often like making social media profiles or they don't want more social apps on their phone. So is there something here that's just a 10x improvement on a feature in the music space? And if so, you know, what is it? And then maybe how is that kind of your key to getting in with customers, which I don't think is a given. And I think a lot of VCs will be, you know, there's skeletons in the closet basically of just social apps that look like they're doing great, and then, you know, they tank. So what's the sticky feature? What's the kind of undeniably awesome thing here that people are going to get on the app to use?
Mark, I noticed you didn't really touch on one of the slides towards the end there, around the financial projections. Did you happen to see that?
I did not look too closely at the financial projections. I think I don't often give too much weight to the financial projections in the pitch. And often I don't see them in the pitch. So it's kind of something I glance over. I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I am someone who very much wants projections to be tied to kind of like moments in the growth story. So I'm always thinking, all right, like I'm less interested in year two, and I'm more interested in what happens when you add on a new feature. And does that suddenly let you have, a bigger market potential or let you kind of change your business model? So we're kind of always in the business, especially in these early decks, of connecting the growth story with the actual stuff happening on the ground, just so it doesn't feel kind of lofty. This does look like a well-reasoned model, though, and I think many investors do appreciate this. It will often show up in an Excel in a data room. It won't always be in the decks that we work on. But curious if, while I was focused on other things, you dove in here.
I did, and I know we're trying to get through these decks really quick, but I want to take a moment actually to talk about financial projections in decks. So
Definitely, let's do it.
largely, I would say that you can skip that as a slide. Investors usually don't place a lot of weight on the financial projections because the company is going to pivot and iterate, and the financial
Exactly.
projections, it's just not really that realistic. In particular, this slide actually raised a lot of red flags for me, like the fact that in year one you're thinking your projections that you're only going to make $24 in revenue, and that by year five you're going to be up to $138,000 in revenue. Feels very, very low for a VC backable business. VCs, just as a quick reminder, want to believe that they need to believe that you are going to deliver a 100x return on their investment. And that means moving really quickly and generating a lot of revenue. And so unless I'm like missing some zeros here, these numbers are just way, way, way too low. So I would get rid of this slide immediately. And instead, what I would focus on is how are you going to acquire customers, right? Because your customers are your revenue channels, and it's for this business model in particular. And so how are you getting customers now? How are you going to get them at scale? Your customer acquisition costs might be extremely high, because my guess is that you're going to be competing with other businesses who are trying to get these same customers. We've already seen another company in this like general space. So I would focus way more attention on your customer acquisition plan and remove that slide.
Kara, that was great, and thank you for covering my blind spots. My last note there is your market opportunity does not always have to be revenue. It can be customers, and oftentimes I think it's a lot more compelling to say, hey, let's just say 20 million people in the US that want to play music. We think we can be in the phones of 1 million of them at this point in time. And that almost just solves this. It's not lying, it's just refocusing on the people themselves. And that's a lot easier to do when you're early and kind of doing napkin math to get to market size numbers. So great comments. I'll pause there. Thank you for submitting another fun one.
I would just second that. I think that at the pre-seed stage, you can almost assuredly not include projections that see more than 5 years out. It can only hurt you. It cannot help you. Especially if you're pre-product, pre-revenue. I think as you get later stage and you have years of revenue and you have a growth rate that you can look to improve upon, it becomes critical to include. But I think in the first few stages of funding, it literally can only raise eyebrows on, is this assumption based, is this even big enough for us to care about? So I would keep that as a rule. But yeah, agree with the team. All right. Think I have Quinn AI. Quality first, intelligence assured, lives improved. Quinn AI is developing an AI platform that helps with quality assurance in the pharmaceutical space. So it sounds like it's a bigger problem than meets the eye. $100 billion problem. It's around quality, impacting, I guess, clinical trials or even things that are actually in market. the current quality management systems still leave teams confused and contribute to the problem. And we have a solution that uses AI to plan, investigate, and resolve deviations faster. There's a big market size, obviously. There's an interesting market map, a go-to-market strategy, a unique team, and then an ask. So I think like just structurally, this is actually in a good place. What I'm craving as I go through this is I'm not exactly sure I understand how you're solving the problem. And I think there's an opportunity to add some credibility to how you've identified and solved the problem by bringing the team up a little bit further in the story. So, what I mean by the first point is that we're saying that there is this broad problem of manufacturing deviations and that the quality management systems still leave teams struggling. What I am curious to know is why can't this be solved until we have the tech from today, which is, obviously a lot of inroads in AI. What is really core to contributing to this problem and why an AI platform like yours actually does solve this problem and create $100 billion of value? I think we're just missing the level of depth that's needed to kind of make clear that this problem can be solved with AI and couldn't previously be solved without AI. And then that would set me up to want to know, how do you understand this industry as well as you do, and can build a startup in this space that can solve this problem and create a great business, which I think you do a great job of on this slide. It's just a lot later in the deck. So I'd consider looking to truly pinpoint the solution that requires AI to solve it and how you've identified that solution with a team that looks like they bring industry veteran status as well as serial founder status, to solve this in a way that can create a great company. So I think we're missing a few things there. I do think that quickly, like a market map like this sometimes works. In this case, I don't think it works. We're kind of putting very generic, like LLMs onto this platform, onto this framework here. I think there's probably another way, but really looking to kind of show how we are thinking about the problem, understand it, and can solve it would be just kind of taking this to the next level.
Thank you, Alex. I'll follow up by saying that it seems like a really big problem. The language is quite sophisticated. I would recommend simplifying it way, way down. I've gone through the deck 2 times and I'm still not certain what the problem is or what the solution is. And I did it really quickly, but also that's what VCs are and most investors are doing, is they're going through it really quickly. And it's not that they don't believe that you have a great business idea, that you are going to win, but there are hundreds of decks that they need to get through. And if you don't grab them immediately and convince them immediately that this is worth at least a meeting, there are just too many other things on their plate. So simplify.
Super well said. I think I always like to think about optimizing for your worst audience. Yes, somebody in the pharmaceutical investment space might, pick up on these words and some of the ways that you describe this pretty quickly, but optimizing for the generalist and the worst audience, somebody who's not familiar with the space at all, satisfies a much larger group of investors and also still will satisfy the expert investor. So, I think, try to get this in the hands of somebody who's not familiar with the space and see if in 60 seconds they understand it as well as you do. Because I agree, neither Kara nor I were picking it up super quickly without a deeper read.
Thanks, Alex. All right.
We
Who's next?
have Arya, scaling primary care via new payments models. So this is an interesting one. It's focused in South Africa, where there's kind of a number of unique problems around healthcare and healthcare payments. The solution here, I think, can best be described as a direct primary care model, which is connecting patients directly to GPs via a bundled care subscription model. So it's basically a new way to access and pay for healthcare. This solves a lot of the issues currently going on in the South African healthcare market, to solving it, and a reasonable kind of pre-seed raise to head towards a nice growth curve. This is an interesting one for me. I think right off the bat, I'd want the story to hook me into South Africa. So I actually almost missed on the first read that this was South Africa focused. And then when I got to this number, I was confused at the sizing, and then I'm like, oh, this is about healthcare in South Africa very specifically. I think that's actually an advantage for you. Yes, there's a world where maybe that creates a smaller market than some US VCs would be interested in. That's kind of a separate discussion we can have around how do you tell a growth story where maybe this model moves beyond South Africa and then becomes, you gain that 100x potential that a VC anywhere is going to be interested in. Like we can talk about that in a sec. But more importantly, I think there's an opportunity for a really visual, powerful hook here where it could just say something simple like care in South Africa doesn't work like it does blank. Some really simple comparison, or something like almost a shock value number where I think there are a couple numbers that come in here, but they're very embedded into this kind of into like the different layers of the problem where I just kind of want to get hit over the head with something like this large percentage of people are uncovered in South Africa, or this large percentage are not being, or not, don't have access to healthcare. So that kind of gets me to maybe the biggest thing here, which is great problems should be super simple to explain. And I think telling me that healthcare is in a vicious cycle requires me to understand multiple parts of the cycle. And we talked a lot today about the short attention spans of your worst audiences, and they might not take the time to really understand the dynamics that are flowing around here. So I'd really think, is there something atomic that sits at the center? Is there just something you can hit someone over the head with that expresses really clearly what's going on in South Africa and why there's a need for a new model? And I think if you can open with that, that solves for the hook, that gets someone brought along much more quickly. And then suddenly I think the solution makes a lot more sense because you have a new model that's directly solving this issue. I think the final piece I just want to talk about is so much of the pre-seed pitch is about vision. And I actually think about these decks often like stories where you're opening with an opportunity. Why should someone care? What's exciting here? Then you have a solution. That's kind of like the middle of the story. And then the vision is the last half. And I don't think this deck, beyond maybe this slide, has a lot of weight towards the vision. And maybe that's the final chapter, but in a lot of pitch decks at the pre-seed, that becomes half the deck or even more. And I think it's okay to really blow out that last part because a lot of times investors want to see where this is going. I think there's a story here about this moving beyond South Africa, or at the very least scaling in South Africa, kind of beyond just distribution in Q3 and Q4. I'd want to know, how do you actually get into millions of customers' hands? How much money could this actually make? And then I want to get some story around this moving probably beyond the home market. I don't think that a 30 billion TAM isn't going to be big enough for a lot of people, especially when we start cracking into that number. So I want to know where else can this go? And I imagine there are other geographies, and if we can establish like a simple dynamic that's causing the problem at the beginning, I'd imagine that there's other geographies that will have that dynamic. And then I want to know how you're going to kind of take this there. I think that gives the deck a lot more legs and gives the business, a lot more potential. But great deck, super clean, and you're doing, this is really important what you're solving for. So I want to make it clear this is something the world clearly needs, and excited to see how it comes to life.
Mark, I would also just want to reiterate, no need to put how much you're raising in your deck. And in fact, that was a little bit of a red flag for me because it seemed like such a small amount to accomplish so much in a short period of time that just removing that will reduce the amount of pushback I think you're getting. Investors are always looking for a reason to say no, right? Because they have limited time and they just need to get through these decks quickly. And so any small thing that might get them hung up, just take it out.
Great. And just by the way, some of the comments, pre-seed, pre-launch, that's not too early to submit. And for anyone who wants to submit, you do just send a link in the chat, and we can get to it either later today or next time. I think now is Shifra's turn, the moment I've been anxiously awaiting. Let's go.
Yeah, Yoinks. I'm really excited for this because I heard the name and I was like, Yoinks, I love the name. But Yoinks enables you to make money from your and your friends' photos and videos now. 50%, or it's almost 60% of Americans aged 18 to 60 want to be creators but don't want to wait a year to earn their first dollar. What we do is we offer monetization for everyone by charging access to any unseen content that is older than 24 hours, showing that over here. Next, we get into Tam Sam Som, a little bit of like a competitor table going on over here. Pricing model, we take 30% on each in-app transaction, 3 million people serving as our initial audience in creator partnerships. We have the team and how much we're raising, and then this appendix slide. So the first thing that pops out to me is that I really appreciate the clarity in the design. I appreciate how the slides don't feel overwhelming and it's really easy to just kind of read through. But that being said, I think there are parts of this pitch that just feel a little bit underbaked to me. The first kind of question that comes up to me when I'm looking at the problem slide is, and also I guess the intro slide when you're framing it with you and your friends is, if I'm using Yoinks, are my friends paying to see stuff that I posted 24 hours ago? And I'm not entirely sure if they would do that. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between the problem and then the solution that's being built out and the fact that the initial audience is in creator partnerships. I just love a little bit more meat around the demand signals that Mark and Alex and Kara were talking about earlier, and just really kind of beefing up how this can be like a big business, which is, I think, the part that's missing the most. I'd be curious if there's initial kind of creator partnerships or certain creator types that are most likely to have like a gated community of some sort that are most incentivized to use Yoinks, if there's any traction there. And then I would probably set up the competitor matrix to be a little bit more specific to who like your competitors actually are. Because here you're kind of competing against Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, a whole variety. And it just doesn't really stick out that well. And then the last piece was that this appendix slide, I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to do with it. Sometimes appendix slides are good to have kind of like a slide that maybe doesn't fit into like the upfront, but still makes a point towards the end if you want someone to look through it. But this is just a lot, and I'm not really going to go through any of these links and learn from Vice about why social media is dead. So those are my thoughts, but feel free to chime in, team.
Shifra, you're a beast. I love your feedback. Wow, you did everything I was going to say too, with one exception, which is that I would love to understand product of founder market fit a little bit better. I did not get a sense, given the competitor slide, which you mentioned, like my big takeaway was like, oh, dang, there's a lot of people in this space. There's giants in this space. Customer acquisition costs are going to be outrageous. And so there needs to be another reason why this team is going to win in this space. And I did not get that from the team slide. Very like maybe impressive background in terms of their career trajectory so far, but I don't have any sense of like why this problem, right? Why this customer segment. So I think that could be a lot more powerful.
Yeah, agreed. That's a great point.
Okay, well, so Shifra is super smart. You guys have been hiding her, and I'm mad at
No,
you about it.
we have not.
If
We're
you want to just do the rest.
yeah. No, actually,
All
I'm
right.
ready to stop.
I think I'm up. Am I
Yeah,
up?
let's pull up Alex and do the next one. Thank you, Shifra.
Wise cities. All right. So wise cities, the wise cities deck. Wise cities is unlocking communities for older adults. There's a personal story tied to the mission here. They talk a lot about older adults feeling disconnected from their communities. This is going to be an even bigger problem as the population ages. They want to age at home, but they lack support, but they still use tech. And then we get into another problem statement just around them not being able to find services, and it hurts everyone. Finally, we transition into a solution, a simple tool that connects communities, followed up by some awesome accolades on the team, their pilot, the interviews that they've done, all the credibility that they've garnered with community support. And then we get into kind of like what the product actually looks like, how it works, and that they have this physical kind of community social component to it. And then a few other slides just on kind of market differentiation, revenue model, ask, and then close. So my quick synopsis is that I think that there's so much to love, and it's just unfortunate that I do feel like we winded and weaved in a couple different directions. So, and this is very salvageable. There's a lot of great slides here, but what we have here is the first 3 slides teeing me up for I guess almost the first 6 slides teeing me up for kind of a social app that connects the older adult with their community. And then what we're seemingly delivering on, at least initially, is an app that actually connects them to services that can, kind of help them even if they're aging at home. So there's like a little bit of an identity crisis, I feel like, as we set these things up. And I understand that looks like you will ultimately be solving for both problems, but the current deck actually just leaves me confused on what the product is, and that's a tough place to be. Um, and then you have all this awesome credibility kind of like sticking back here that I think could be, reworked or, brought in somewhere else. But my thought is that, there's these two slides create an amazing arc to set me up for a community platform. And then this slide and this slide set me up to, understand that there's a services connection platform. And so perhaps if the services is our way in, we lean on that story first, make the upfront much shorter, not 8 slides to get to the solution, but 2 slides to get to the solution. Solve the services problem, highlight that there is a market in connecting the older adults with their community services, and then show how we can create an even more lovable product because we get this to also connect them to their physical community. So, I think that's my read. I read it through it a bunch of times, and I was like loving every slide in isolation, but just craving a more streamlined narrative structure. And then one last thing that I just wanted to note, this is a great slide. Community support. This is what product market fit looks like, and we're highlighting a couple screenshots from emails from, it looks like well-esteemed organizations. This type of statement, this is what product market fit looks like, it's giving me a little bit, it's scaring me a little bit, to be honest, because I think this is the kind of social proof that we like to show, but we want the investor to intuit themselves that there is product market fit here. And by saying this specifically is what product market fit looks like, you almost immediately elicit the reaction of, well, is this what I know to be product market fit? Is product market fit a lot of kind of positive emails from organizations in the community? And now I'm, kind of questioning credibility other places. So I would just avoid these very declarative statements, because you want to show the proof and let the investor get to those landing spots themselves, so you can just continue to enhance your credibility. But I'm curious if, Kara, you agree with that or any other points as you look through this one.
I agree with everything that you said, Alex. The disjointed narrative is really throwing me off, which is unfortunate because that second slide with the picture of the individual really hit home for me, actually. Like
This is a good hook. I just want to say that. This is a good
Great.
hook.
It's amazing.
What an emotional reaction, right? Which is unusual in this industry, in the startup world, to have such a strong emotional reaction. And I think actually, on a personal note, a lot of investors are likely seeing their own parents enter the aging process or struggle with the aging process. I'm just unclear what the solution is, right? Because I saw a slide that says this population wants to age at home, but they can't find services. I'm unsure why they can't find services, because also there's a slide saying they use the internet and have a laptop. But then also, I'm just not sure exactly, are you solving the problem of getting them services? Or are you solving the problem of connecting them to the community? And I'm sure that the answer is both, but I don't understand how, right? And I also don't understand how this company will be making any money. Like who's paying for this?
Yeah, they kind of get to it at the end. I think it's super well said. It's like there's so much to love, but it's like it just needs to be a little tighter. and then it'll be really lovable. It's almost there.
I agree. It has really good like outline, but we need to just fill in the details.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna move rapidly through Rapidual, and then hopefully we set up Shifra to take us home. We'll see if we get to a couple more. All right, so this is a funny one. It also kind of swerves where it starts off being about delivery drivers being underutilized. Um, and that makes a lot of sense. And then it starts talking about how laundry delivery can basically be connected with e-commerce and other types of delivery drivers. So it's an interesting combination where it kind of opens like a logistics deck, just with the name, logistics as the vision statement, and then very quickly becomes about logistics, but very specifically for combining delivery drivers with a laundry service that would work like this. People send their laundry to Wash HQ. That goes back and forth with retail and fulfillment, and then it gets back to the home at the same time as their goods. So this is really interesting. It's something I've never seen before. And I think there's just an identity crisis that needs to be discussed. And then depending on where you want to go, you would change the deck in one of two ways. So I think the question I have is, does it need to be laundry? Um, if there are other things besides laundry that could be combined with ecom delivery, then I would bring that into the deck and go full B2B pitch, where it's basically like we are optimizing delivery services, we're making delivery drivers more efficient, and there's all these things, laundry and beyond, that we can use to basically have delivery drivers utilization go through the roof. And then the customer becomes very clear. The customer are like the fleets or whoever's in control of the delivery drivers. What happens here is because it becomes so focused on laundry and the app itself looks like a laundry app, I then get all these questions about, well, why is this the laundry app that anyone should use? Why is this better than me using another laundry service or doing laundry myself? Is this actually more reliable than just ordering Amazon separately from laundry and doing them both together? So there's basically a whole questions that emerge if it has to be laundry, and Wash HQ is at the core of this. And if that is the case and it does have to be laundry, I'd really recommend you lead with that being the solution. So instead of opening with dual purpose logistics, I get a lot more specific and talk about, basically a better way of delivering laundry. So really interesting just in that it swerved in a way I wasn't expecting. And I think you should just maybe commit one way or the other. And either it's a hard B2B pitch around improving logistics efficiency for drivers in a number of ways, or, guess what? We have a more affordable way to deliver laundry. And then you talk about which markets you're starting in. You're starting in San Francisco, and then you'll go to other markets, and it's just going to become the best laundry service because it's going to be cheaper or something. So yeah, definitely a unique one. And thank you for submitting.
Shifra, let's squeak in one last one, shall we?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have daycare, a single solution for the 560K daycare struggling to modernize. Managing a daycare sales and ops is currently fragmented, expensive, inconvenient, and daycare seamlessly integrates management and sales into one place. Will reach farther than any current child care platform. 1.45 million parents already use daycare.com to search for care. I thought this was really interesting. They've been around for 25 years, trusted by 45 million parents. 24 weeks post MVP launch, we have some traction, seamless integrations and business partnerships are laying the groundwork for rapid expansion. And then multiple revenue streams. Our competitors are either search or software. Daycare is providing both simplicity and savings. This one has a lot of really good ammo. I really like how everything has like narrative headlines. It makes it a lot easier to follow the points that are being made. And I think generally it connects really well. Where my head goes when I'm reading this is really just having a more solid upfront. I like the slide around sales and operations is currently fragmented, expensive, and inconvenient. These daycares are paying a lot. Enrollment is unbalanced, and there's a lot of time that's spent on it. And then what I would love to have in the upfront to really substantiate this problem that's being zoomed on in this slide is to zoom in on what the gap is currently. And this is something that we'll often do with competitor framings instead of like a competitor table or a matrix, is really bring those competitors up early and frame them as something that's leading to a gap in the market that we're solving and we're uniquely positioned to solve. So in this case, I think there's this sense of like you can use Venmo and PayPal. I'm Canadian, so I don't really use Venmo, but Venmo, PayPal, Excel, Word, you have all these like legacy kind of stuff that you can use. But then there's also competitors that I guess are a little bit more like daycare direct. And so I'd be curious to have that kind of weaved into the upfront around why do both of these kind of buckets of competitors fail, and where does daycare really tangibly come in? I like the solution slide. What I would love to see on the solution slide, or maybe on the second slide, is kind of like a larger image of the platform itself. Something that we also think about a lot is tangibility. It's really nice to have all these words, but I think these visuals, especially if you already have a product or an MVP or like a demo or a GIF, really go a long way. And then it seems like you have this really interesting like distribution mechanism built in from like the original daycare.com trusted by 45 million parents, plus the traction. I like having these both come together. I think that works really nicely narratively. If this traction is particularly impressive, like 5,000 provider signups, definitely would recommend using that as a hook that comes in earlier, just to really kind of grab attention. But I also see that you guys are already doing that with a 560K and like seeding that market number in early. So that's really great. Probably could cut down text here a little bit, but I think it does the job. And yeah, I also really like how you called out the valuations here. But again, my biggest push would be on the upfront around the competitor framing. But I think this deck does a lot of things really well.
Thank
Whoa.
you, Jeffra. Wow, it's on fire. That was amazing. One last thing I'll say, and I know we're at time. One last thing I'll say about that deck is that there are so many daycare providers that just aren't using really any technology, right? Like my own daycare provider, she takes a check from me. And when she has an opening, she lets her current families know. And we like tell our friends because every family in our city is looking for childcare. So there are competitors in your deck that I think you address, but there's also the like competitor of doing nothing and just, you know, scrapping it together with like Facebook posts and Venmo to sort of just make it work. And it's just something that I think some investors will probably bring up is why would somebody use your platform instead of just not, right? That's always an option for every single company out there. Somebody could just choose to not solve the problem. So if you could address a little bit more, why is this problem so painful? I think that would serve you very well. Okay. This was so fun.
It really was. I feel like we got so many awesome decks. You never know what to expect, but there was a great variety, a lot to love about the decks. This was a really good sesh.
I know we did not get to everybody. And in fact, I saw quite a few repeat decks in there. So people who submitted in December we didn't get to, and then submitted today that we didn't get to. So I think you all know we have a newsletter, Second Opinion newsletter, where Alex and Mark make these awesome videos where they deep dive into decks and give like really awesome feedback. So if we have missed you twice, we will prioritize, and assuming you've submitted the form to get your deck reviewed, we will prioritize your decks in the next handful of weeks on the newsletter. If you have never heard of our newsletter, I don't know how you got here. Thank you for joining us. We'll make sure to follow via email with a link so that you can sign up and submit your deck if that's interesting. Okay, thank you guys so much for being here. Mark, Alex, Shifra, humans, for trusting us with your decks. We're so grateful, and we will be back. We'll do this again at some point, and we hope you can join us again.
Cheers.
All right. Awesome stuff. Thanks so much.
Bye.